What's up, everybody? Aaron and Paige back on the podcast, Episode 4. Another late night session, but we have a guest here. We have Everett. He's awake because he had a little procedure done with his tongue tie and lip tie, so we have to kind of do some stretches and whatnot every 6 hours. And yes, if you're watching YouTube, he is wearing his sister's pink sleep sack. On today's episode, we're just going to be talking about growing together, basically the joys and challenges of raising children at different ages, and just whatever else we ramble on about type thing. So, yeah, let's get right into it. Everett might have a couple conversations as well on top of that, because he looks wide awake right now. He's just smiling at his mom.
Hi. Yeah. I think right now it's hard to say overall where things are, like what it would look like in 5 years, 10 years. And like obviously our kids are pretty close in age in the grand scheme of things. So I feel like the age gap that we have is going to seem the most drastic now.
Yeah.
Versus, when they're 5 and 7.5 or 10 and 12.5. Tiffany? I think right now the hardest part, or one of the hardest parts, and I think this kind of falls into the newborn phase as well, is just how divided things feel.
Yeah, especially that one.
Like this weekend made me like I actually was thinking about this when I was on rides with Addie, how like we're years away from being able to just go on a ride together other than the carousel.
Yeah.
Because this year Addie already wanted to do all these rides, and a lot of them she wasn't even big enough for herself.
Yeah, there was, for people that don't know, that haven't watched our YouTube channel, we went to the
Strawberry
Festival here in LaSalle, Ontario.
Which it was really fun, and like it honestly, it worked out well because you don't care about going on any of the rides, and she was perfectly happy to have me go on the rides with her.
Yeah.
But like next year, Everett's going to be at that like weird age where he's like starting to want to do all those things. And I feel like, especially having an older sibling, he's going to want to
kind of
be able to do the same things that she's doing.
Yeah.
And the only ride that he would have been able to do is the carousel.
What do you mean even be able to do the carousel? I guess it depends on how tall he is.
I don't know that they have a height restriction on that one.
Okay.
But regardless,
yeah,
like we're still gonna, like it's gonna be years at something like that. Like obviously it's not gonna be as obvious at other things, but anything where there's rides with height restrictions, we're just years away from being able to do things as a family. And I feel like that's when it was like, that was the first time that anything other than like our current situation has made me think of what it's going to be like having 2 kids.
Yeah.
Really, in the next few years. But I mean, in the newborn stage, like everything just, I don't know whether it's the newborn stage, because obviously we're like still very much in the new adjusting to life with two stage, but like with Addie, we did everything together.
Yes.
And now it just feels like if Addie wants to go to bed and he's crying, it's like I'm starting to see light at the end of the tunnel for this, but it just feels like, he can't just be in bed.
No. And it's tough too, because he needs the attention and then she wants the attention. But I don't think she understands just yet that he needs your support with the stuff that you're talking about. Like he can't just be there by himself.
Yeah.
Like he needs your support.
And when she's ready to snuggle, like she's fine with him being in bed when I can like just lay there and focus on making sure he's safe and whatever. She's fine with it, but then she'll get to the point that she's just like, put him in his own bed.
Yeah, why? Put Everett to sleep. He's still awake. We can't just put him in his crib asleep, awake.
And then I feel like that falls into so many other areas where it's just been like, nothing seems easy. And it does feel like it's getting easier. So like, I know that it's going to continue to get easier, but like bath time, like what do you do? What do you do when you have 2 kids? And, you know, Addie doesn't want to get out of the bath and Everett needs to get out of the bath. And then it's, so it just feels like
if you don't have 2 parents home, it's actually a tough
hard
situation, right? Because you can't leave her in the tub, right?
Well, exactly. And it happened more than once where when you were like your last trip that you took for work and I was home alone with both kids and I drained the water, but she wouldn't get out of the bath because she didn't want to be done in the bathtub. So I literally drained the water and I told her to call me when she was ready for me to lift her out.
Yeah.
Because like he was screaming, like he was ready to be done in the bathtub. So I had to deal with him. And then it's like, but the one time that I took her out, she ended up peeing all over the carpet. So it's just one of those things where it was like, it felt like no matter what I did, it was the wrong move of what kid to take out and get organized first. And like, he kind of needs to be organized first because he has 0 control over his bladder. And Addie, at least a little bit better.
Which recently it's been an issue.
So yeah, the potty training thing. Like I'm just.
Yeah. She's done it. I feel like she's done it more so now than she has in the last year.
Because I feel like she's getting like. I think the potty training thing is frustrating for me because I don't want her to like associate going to the bathroom with such negative feelings. Like I don't want to force her into sitting on the toilet if she doesn't want to. But she knows when she has to go to the bathroom. And like, she doesn't like to sit in a wet diaper. She doesn't want to sit in a dirty diaper. Like, so she demands that you change her the second she goes to the bathroom. And I'll watch her, like in the morning, I'll see her do her little pee dance. And I'll ask her, do you want to go sit on the bathroom? And she'll say no. And then she'll instantly stop and be like, I'm peeing.
Yeah.
And so then when it's like she's been in the bathroom, like the other night, gave her bath. She was in the bathtub, took her out. And usually when she does have potty success, it's when she's in the bath because I'll tell her, like, you cannot poop in the tub.
Yeah.
And
then she'll let you know when she needs to go pee or poo and she'll.
Yeah. So then the other night when she did it, it was so frustrating because it's like you
waited until
you were just in the bathtub. It's not like I took you out and let you run around naked for 45 minutes. Like I took you out and within 5 minutes you had peed on your bedroom floor.
Yeah.
And like I try so hard not to lose my cool. Peeing on the hardwood has honestly been a little bit easier to maintain my cool than when she
does it on the carpet.
Like the day that she's on the carpet, I wanted to cry. Or like when she has pooped on the floor.
Yeah.
Like I find it very hard to like maintain composure. So I have found it easier with her at least doing it on the floor and not the carpets. But I just don't I don't know. I don't know what to do. And maybe we're doing this wrong. Like maybe we should be following some potty training technique, whatever. I just feel like if you try to force somebody to do something, then they're not ready to do it, then
they're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. And I know myself well enough to know that it's going to cause me to get frustrated. And I don't think that's going to be conducive to her learning either.
Yeah.
So I just feel like
we've done this stuff where we brought the potty outside and left her either not in a diaper or naked. But she's never really used it. Like we stayed out there for a couple hours and she didn't go to the washroom.
Well, because and now she has such good like she does have really good bladder control.
Yeah.
And so now it's like she does have such good bladder control that like you do really need to commit to being out there all day, and like she will not commit to being outside all day.
Yeah.
So then she'll come in and like, maybe this is where we have it wrong. I don't know. But I don't want her sitting on the couch without a diaper on.
Yeah.
Just because I know how I'm going to respond if she has an accident. It's not that I think it's the end of the world if she does pee on the couch. Like, obviously not ideal.
Yeah.
But it's more about knowing that I'm not my nicest self when she has
an accident day.
Well, especially because I can tell when she needs to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, she does little.
So I feel like if I said to her, like, hey, do you need to sit on the toilet? Sorry. I feel like if I said to her, do you need to sit on the toilet? And she said, no, and then proceeded to pee on the couch.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And like, it's funny because the potty training thing actually, maybe it's just because she's always been like kind of ahead of the curve on so many things.
Yeah.
That I've always been like, oh, like people shouldn't compare their kids. All kids learn at like their own pace, blah, 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 whatever. And I've been very like, but that's also coming from a place of like, you know, she walked young, she was sitting young, she did all these things relatively early.
Yeah.
And recently, when I've been on Instagram and like any of like the other moms that I follow that all have kids in and around Addie's age, and they're like talking about potty training and whatever, it's funny how easy it is to feel so inadequate.
Yeah.
And just feeling like, oh, like maybe we're behind, maybe we should be doing these things. And it's like, there's no part of me that thinks that she's going to go to school and not know how to go to the bathroom on the toilet. And
But she's obviously not in a daycare because she's talked about it too, right?
what, going to the bathroom on the potty? Addie has never told me that she's gone.
She's talked to me about it, yeah.
Oh, I know that they have a potty and I mean, obviously they have a potty at daycare.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that like her daycare provider has talked to me about like sitting her on it, but Addie or her have never given me like an official update about how she's doing.
Yeah, it's not often, but like she'll say like, oh, I went on the potty today, and
Yeah.
so.
I don't know. I just feel like in the moments when I'm like not wrapped up in what other people are doing, I know she's going to figure it out on her own terms. I know that like looking back, the period of her life that she was in diapers is going to seem so short.
Yeah.
But it is like, it's so easy to get caught up in like we're not doing enough, we're not enough, we're not whatever. Just like that cycle of like comparison and whatever.
Yeah.
Just got really sidetracked.
Yeah, we're talking about the bath.
Sorry. But yeah, anyway, I just feel like, especially like when Everett first came home, it like was it really felt like it was divide and conquer. Like one parent had to tend to the other kid. Now it's starting to feel like even eating dinner.
Yeah.
Like we never sat down as a family to eat dinner. It was like I would sit with Everett and feed him while you guys were eating, and then I would eat after.
Yeah.
Or whatever, because like he wouldn't sit down for that amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And like with Addie, it was always that little bit easier because A, she was the only kid. So
yeah.
But B, she also like always napped around dinner time.
Yeah, she did.
So even if she like wouldn't transfer, she'd at least be sleeping. And Everett never sleeps at meal time.
No, he doesn't.
Like he's always awake.
This is the odd time that he does, but like that was like early on. Like,
yeah, it's very rare that he's napping at dinner time, and he does not want to be put down during it. Like he wants to be held, and not just held, he wants to be entertained.
Yes. He's been doing well, like sitting with us at the table then.
Yeah, putting him in the high chair and just having it kind of tilted back has been nice. It's made it so that like we have a little bit more freedom with being able to sit down as a family and not have to hold him the whole time, which has been really nice. Plus, I'm hoping it'll help get him kind of used to the high chair before we start him on solids in a few months.
Yeah.
But yeah, just everything felt very divided and it felt really hard. And I think that may have been the hardest part of adjusting from one to two for me, was just this feeling of like such close like togetherness before we had him, to all of a sudden feeling like I had to tend to him or her, because it just felt like they always wanted the opposite things.
Yeah.
Or they did want the same things, and I felt like I couldn't give that to them.
Yeah.
Like when he, now, I mean, he's pretty proficient at breastfeeding, but like in the early days, like, you don't just like take a boob out and let them do their thing. Now, like to sit on the couch, I can sit with both kids on the couch.
Yeah, and he's getting to the point where he's like hands-free, like before you needed to hold your breast in place.
But this is what I mean. Like before, it wasn't like I could just put him on and then snuggle her with the other arm.
Yeah.
So, I memean, all of those things are starting to feel that little bit easier, but it is hard.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the hardest aspect of the transition. Like aside from like the obvious struggles of having a new baby, like being tired and whatever, that was probably the hardest part for me with the transition.
I think even from a dad's perspective, obviously I didn't have like breastfeeding and whatnot, like that might have been also the hardest part about like almost like what do I
what kid am I taking on? Yeah. And especially for Addie, I feel like she put up a lot of fights because she did want it to be mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know necessarily that it had to be me, but it was almost more like my attention was so placed on Everett for so much that it was like, it wasn't even necessarily that she cared that it was me doing the thing, but it was like the novelty of it. Like,
well, even I think the first, was it 6 weeks? Was the hardest because you had that C-section and you weren't supposed to be picking it up, because so that was even worse.
And I think it was everybody else trying to do things that normally I would do for her that she was just like, absolutely not. It has to be my mom. Because, like, even when we have people visiting, like, my mom would try to, like, lift her onto the change table, and she would throw a fit about it.
She'd be like, Mommy, it's Mommy's job.
So it does feel like it's getting a little bit easier now that he's not, like, quite as fragile of a newborn, and she has adjusted a little bit. Plus, it's getting that little bit easier to include him in things. But, yeah, this weekend, it was just, like, as I was waiting to get on all those rides, I'm like, in a year or 2 years when he's not quite tall enough to do these things, this is not going to...
He might be, though, because he is a tall
He is a tall kid. But, like, it's not going to be as enjoyable of an experience if you have one kid that can only ride on one ride that wants to go on all the rides, and one kid that is basically tall enough to do all the rides.
Yeah.
Which, actually, we should talk about that. The joys of taking your kids to do fun things.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why are toddlers like that?
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Every time, for anybody who doesn't have a toddler, anytime we take Addie to do
fun things,
basically anything fun, you have to mentally prepare yourself for the fight of leaving.
Mm-hmm. Anything.
Yeah.
She even hates goodbyes to like anyone that she meets. Like,
she has always been like that, though. Yeah. Like, she's always been like very tearful when family leaves, or but you take her to the park, meltdown central when you try to leave. We took her to the Strawberry Festival. Yeah. And she was mad when we were leaving. She was mad when we left the area with the ride. She was mad. And, like, I get it to a certain extent. But I wish I could understand what her thought process is as to, like, why. Like, especially the park. Strawberry Festival, I kind of understand because that was, like, a bigger event.
Yeah.
But the park. We literally go to the park every day.
Every day.
So when I tell you we'll come back tomorrow, why do we need to fight about leaving?
Oh, I feel like at that point, I feel like she's in a routine. I need to cry as we're leaving the park or cause an issue or whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know every time.
And like,
she does.
Oh yeah, you try to do anything fun and you just know. You know that she's going to get so upset when you have to go to leave. The birthday parties were another one.
Yeah.
Addie's like obsessed with birthday parties.
She always thinks it's her birthday that we're going to.
So first the birthday parties were an issue because she was having a very hard time understanding that other people could have a birthday and not just her. So that was the first round of tears for every birthday party we've gone to.
Yeah.
And then the second round of tears comes when we tell her that we need to leave. And it's very draining.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like now I'm home more. So it's still really frustrating, but I don't find it maybe as severe. Maybe because I just disappoint her so much more now that I'm home.
Maybe.
But when I was working, I had like a really hard time with it. I just found it really mentally draining that it was like I spend half my time at work.
Yeah.
And then the other half of the time at home. And I try so hard to plan fun outings on those days. And then to have it met with tantrum after tantrum, it was really hard. So I do feel like it's a little bit easier now that I'm home because I feel like now, I don't know, it's not quite the same. Not that I don't put as much effort into making things fun, but when I was working, it felt like every day that I was off, I would try to do. I felt more pressure.
You're at work and you're like, it's different when you're at home and you're like waiting for her to come home from daycare versus like working all day and you think that, oh, I need to spend time with our kids and whatnot. It's just a different feeling. And then.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think there is just like the pressure of how, like, I felt like when I was working, I put that pressure on myself to really absorb all of the time I had with her. Yeah. And because of that, I always tried to make that time special. Not that we did like overly like expensive things or like, it's not that we, did extravagant things with her, but like I would take her to the pool once a week. Mm-hmm. I would take her, like, I just would always try to pick fun things to do because I wanted her to think of my days off as being really fun and special. Yeah. And then every one of my days off, it would like every time I would try to do something fun, it would end in tears. And then now that I'm home and like I'm home every night for dinner, I'm home every night. It's like, maybe there's just so many other opportunities for me to make her cry that the tears because we're leaving the Strawberry Festival just don't hit me quite the same. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I don't think, her things range. Like I feel like the park isn't as bad anymore because we go so frequently, like, but a birthday party or leaving grandma and grandpa's house or grandma and pop's house, it's a little more severe type thing. So.
Yeah. And part of me does wonder whether it's because we go to the park so often or whether it's like the prep work that we've done. Yeah. Like there's been a lot of prep work about like okay behavior and not okay behavior when we are leaving the park. Yeah. Because there was a couple times that she ran, like before I had Everett. I don't really remember her ever running away from me, or if she did, I guess
didn't she do it when that one time you were with Everett and I wasn't here?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying though. Before I had him, I don't really ever remember her running away from me. And maybe if she did, I just don't remember. Like, I just didn't, store that in my brain because it just wasn't really a big deal. But yeah, once I had him, she started running away when we'd be at the park.
Yeah.
So then it was like, no, man, can't be doing that. So then it was like there was so much prep work into like, if, we can't do this and this, then we cannot go to the park. So now we'll be walking to the park and she'll tell me, I'm allowed to cry. I'm allowed to do whatever. And it's like, yep, you sure are.
Yeah.
And like, not that this is some groundbreaking parenting tactic, but we have had a lot of success with her with like laying out very clear expectations.
Yeah.
Which it seems so obvious, but I feel like so much of the time, I don't know, maybe there's just like not enough credit given to like a 2-year-old and what they're
capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like since we've started like having that conversation with her of like, you're allowed to be sad, you're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to cry, you can, tell me that you're mad at me, but you cannot do this or this. And like, she does respond very well to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not perfect.
No,
she is still 2.
Yeah.
But it has improved a lot of that.
Yeah.
Plus, I feel like it's also helped her, like, now. Has she done this with you at all when she's having a conversation with you and she'll stop to tell you how she's feeling? I'm sad.
Yeah, the odd time.
And, like...
I was wondering where that came from, to be honest with you.
I'm sad. I'm mad. It's okay. That's what she told me the other day.
Yeah.
But then, in, like, positive ways, too, because then we were laying in bed the other night, snuggling her to sleep, and she told me, Mom, my heart is happy. And I just wanted to give her the biggest hug. Yeah, so I mean, it definitely does help.
Yeah.
I think it's just really hard to like maintain those boundaries. The park is an easy one because it's just very...
It's frequent.
And it's just also very basic.
Yeah.
And there's no outside like noise involved in that.
Mm-hmm. I know it's a lot of more prep work when we have like go to my parents or go to your parents and whatnot. It's like the day before, or like the day before, you're like, okay, we're gonna wake up, we're gonna have breakfast, we're gonna do this, we're gonna blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, but we're gonna have to say goodbye to grandma and grandpa, or grandma and pops, and then we're gonna go home, and then obviously at that point, like it's still an issue, but obviously I'm assuming she's starting to understand that it's okay to feel the way that she feels.
Yeah, I mean, traveling with her has definitely gotten a lot easier over the last year. Before, it felt like there needed to be so much planning and like the timing of our drives, and it's like she's gone through different phases of like what worked and when, but I feel like we finally have gotten to a point where like she's pretty easy to travel with. Yeah. Tomorrow, I guess, will be the true kind of test because so we used to travel during the day because then we could stop at an en route for like a decent amount of time, give her some time outside of the car.
Yeah.
Then we started traveling. Well, I started traveling with her at night.
Yeah. So she would sleep and whatnot. It was just easier to put her to
I'm thinking
sleep.
And I think it also had to do with timing because I think we started doing that in and around the time that she started like reliably sleeping for at least 5 to 6 hour stretches to begin the night. And then just I was back to work. So I think to try to get the most amount of time out of a visit, like
you leave the night before.
It just kind of worked out that we needed to leave the night before. And then it worked out so well that if I was doing the drive without you, that it was like I could just load her up and just go. And know that she would sleep the whole time.
Yeah.
So, But then we started to find that when we would drive late, we'd get
She'd
to our parents.
She'd be wide awake when we got
and
there.
she'd be wired because there was that sweet period where she would just go straight back to sleep. But yeah, then we went through that period where she was waking up when we got to wherever we were driving to, and she would want to play with the toys because both grandparents have very inviting homes.
Yes.
With
leave all the toys out and leave all the books out. And
yeah, there's toys and
have
books.
it in the bedrooms and have it in the living rooms and
And at my parents, it's less likely, I feel like. But usually there's somebody up when we get there, even if we get there late.
Yeah. To your brother.
Yeah, so there's been a couple times that my brother's popped in to like say hey or help me load, like bring stuff in. And
at my parents' house, it's usually my mom is awake.
Or your mom is up, and I feel like also as soon as she sees family, she's like ready to party. Oh. So tomorrow will kind of be a good
test.
A good test to see how she does with the nighttime traveling again.
Everett's been great. Whatever time he's been.
Everett's done great. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit of a test for him too, though, because he usually sleeps pretty well.
Yeah.
And he's done well in the car, but I'm a little nervous about how this is going to look. So I'm glad that you're going to be with us for the first time trying to do the nighttime drive with both kids. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we'll have to see. I think my days of traveling with the kids, like doing nighttime drives when it's just me, are probably over.
Probably.
Until both kids will sleep through the night for sure.
Yeah.
Because the thought of having to stop and unload 2 children if one kid had to like go pee or something. No.
That would be a nightmare. Yeah. That would be a nightmare.
I do feel like the whole growing and whatever, obviously it was more pertaining to like the kids.
Yeah.
But I do feel like there's an aspect of growing together and the challenges that just like that presents on like a marriage. And having children.
Yeah.
And I do feel like this plays into a little bit of like, you know, the adjustment period that you go through after you bring a baby home. Because I feel like before we had kids, it was so easy for me to do my thing and you to do your thing.
Yeah.
And then just come back together.
Yeah.
And then I feel like when we had Addie, it was kind of the first time that I felt like maybe just the areas that we were growing were so different. Like you were still working on your career and like that kind of growth.
Or you had already finished. You were a well-seasoned veteran over here.
Well, I don't know about that, but kind of like I was like I'd been in my career for a few years at that point, and when Addie came, it was like 100% of my growth had to do with becoming a mom. And I feel like it still kind of counts with like the second baby too, because I feel like all the growth that I have gone through in, you know, the last 3 months has all been about like figuring out how to be a mom of 2, how to divide my time between both kids, how to try to encourage their relationship with each other, how to, you know, maintain my relationship. Like Addie and I were so close before Everett.
Yeah.
And so trying to figure out how to maintain that bond I had with her, because I don't want her to just always fall to the wayside because, oh, she doesn't need me as much as him.
Yeah, I know. So
I feel like all of my growth all has to do with how to be a mom.
And like I was saying before, it's a lot of time management.
Yeah, but I feel like your growth still can happen outside the home.
Yeah.
Like you still have time and, you know, the ability to, I don't know, like commit to yourself or devote to, you know, other hobbies or.
Right. your hobby is being a mom,
We're,
basically.
yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, there's no part of, I can't do anything, literally anything, without there being a conversation about who's going to monitor the children while I do those things.
Yeah.
And it's just not the same for you. And I mean, I'm sure that this is like this in literally every other parenting relationship out there, that the parent who
is main provider,
like kind of the default parent,
yeah,
you know, I can't get my hair done without consulting with you, or literally asking daycare if they can take Addie for an extra day,
yeah,
for half a day, so I can go get my hair cut. And then you're just like, hey, I'm going to go get my hair cut tomorrow morning. Like,
yeah.
And I don't blame you for it. Like, it's fine. But I think that this is where some of like the adjustments come in. Because it is like, before we had kids,
We just do whatever we wanted to
well,
do.
we were just in such a selfish phase of life. And like, I don't say that in a bad way. Like, I loved that phase of life. I did. Like, we could talk about booking a trip and literally book it within a week.
Now it's like a 3-month thing. Or
Now, yeah.
Like,
we have so many conversations. What are flights like? What are we going to do about car seats? What are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that?
yeah.
And before this, we really were in a phase of life where it was like, hey, we should book this trip soon.
Yeah.
And then that was on Monday. And by Friday, the trip is booked.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't mean selfish in like a bad sense. It's just, it was such a selfish phase of life where really I could do whatever I wanted and you could do whatever you wanted. And it was so easy to just
do it.
Know that we could both go off and do our own thing and that we would come together at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then once you have kids, it's so hard not to feel like I'm here with the children. You're there. We're like, yeah, you have a wife and kids and whatever at home, but you also have work and hobbies and outings that you really can still go to without too much difficulty.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like that is what creates the barrier of like, I don't know, like just some of the difficulties that come in a relationship.
Yeah.
When you've had kids.
100%.
Because like with Addie, by the time she was 1, we had kind of just figured that out, and I was back to work, and so then you start to feel that freedom come back a little bit.
It might be a little different now that you're taking 18 months.
Yeah, and I've thought about that, whether I'm just going to kind of feel stuck in that role for that little bit longer. I shouldn't say stuck, because I do really enjoy my time at home. But yeah, just that feeling of like not really having much outside of my home life. Or whether once he hits a year and it'll be just that little bit easier to, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. But it definitely is a growing, not just with.
Yeah, it's not just how you raise it's not just how you raise your kids at different ages. It's also how you raise and foster your relationship.
Yeah, how it evolves over time too, right?
Yeah.
So, and it will evolve. People that say that it doesn't are lying to you.
Well,
if it doesn't.
Yeah.
It does change.
It's so funny. Like, I remember, this is probably the truest statement, is that the best parents are the people that don't have children. Because, like, before we had kids, we were like, oh, we would never do that with our kids. Oh, we would never do this with our kids. Oh, when we have kids, our kids are going to fit into our lifestyle and blah, 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 whatever other.
And there might be people that do that.
Well, and I think to a
100%,
certain extent, we have done that. Like, our kids have fit into our lifestyle. Like, we are not the family. Like, some people live a very regimented, like, nap time is at 10 a.m. and nap time is
go
at
home, like, you're out with them, and they're like, I gotta go home. And because so and so has a nap at 12,
Yeah,
and
like,
this and that, and I'm like,
we can't meet at that time because that's their nap time. We have never lived that life,
yeah,
ever. Our kids, both of them, have needed to be able to just like nap on the go.
yeah,
And part of that, I think, is just that neither of us work a 9 to 5.
yeah.
So our schedule is very different based on
Both of our schedules
the
are very
week.
different. Yeah.
So part of me thinks it's that, but also just, I think, just in general, like, I don't know.
I feel like we're very adaptive in our ways and in our parenting ways. I feel like I am.
I don't know how adaptable I am. I just don't live my life on a schedule.
Yeah.
Like, we have a rough schedule, I guess, but
Yeah. You got a guideline.
yeah. Like, we have routines. We have routines. They're just not based on like a very strict
Hard.
schedule of time. But
You can't. Why don't we end it there?
I think we're going to have to.
So hope everyone enjoyed this very unscripted version of our podcast today. If you like what you heard, or if you like what you're continuously hearing, make sure if you're on YouTube to subscribe to the channel, like the video. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, make sure you download or subscribe on those channels as well. Hope everybody has a great evening. Or if you're listening to this in the morning, hope everyone has a great day. And see you next time on episode 5. Take care, everybody.